Hey, it's Sam, and as you can see, I'm here with Dr. Malini Iyer. She's going to be helping me and teach this class on astrology stories and celebrations. We're real excited about bringing this to you. Malini and I talk about these things all the time, where we really bring the stories of astrology to life, all of the divine mythology, and the connection to the seasons and the year and whatnot. Not only does understanding all of the celebrations and stories deepen your astrology practice, but also even if you're just one who likes to celebrate the Indian, festivals, the knowledge of astrology will deepen that as well. So I'm real happy to have Malini here. She's going to share with us her journey. She's from India, obviously. She actually grew up in India, celebrated these things her whole life, then became an astrologer, started studying it, and really the knowledge of these things deepen both, and she's going to share a lot of that with us today. So Malini, thanks for taking some time today.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for putting this unique course together. I don't think there's anything like this out there. So I highly encourage people to sign up. And thank you for giving me this opportunity and the platform to share my own personal journey and experience. Like you pointed out, I grew up in India. I grew up in Mumbai, which is very cosmopolitan. And, in Mumbai, you can see all different parts of India brought together. People maintain their own unique identity. So I saw every single celebration or every single festivals celebrated through different regions, so to say, in Mumbai.
By the way, real quick, for those of us who don't know, Mumbai to Westerners is also Bombay. Bombay. It's actually Mumbai. So we'll say Bombay.
Yeah.
Good.
I grew up calling it Bombay. So
yeah, no, I'm just saying now it's always referred to as Mumbai, but it's, in case people don't know, Bombay. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So I got a flavor of all the festivals celebrated through different perspectives, and how me being South Indian, we had a different emphasis for a certain festival. For example, Diwali. Whereas the ones who were from Gujarat had a different emphasis. People from the West Bengal had different emphasis. So you could get to flavor all of those things, and we celebrated these festivals as a way for the community or the people to come together. Of course, India has so many holidays, right? And literally holy days, and we just use these opportunities to connect and have fun and have sweets. Yes, occasionally we'll go to the temple because our parents said so, or there were certain stories that were recited on these festivals, and we would just take them in, but never really think about it. And I think when I started studying with you, Sam, this was back in 2012, 2013. It's going to be almost 10 years. Can you believe that?
No, I don't.
So I think that's the first time when, first of all these mythological stories started to connect, because there was an astrological framework. We have the framework and the way Sam lays out his course. You study the whole framework in terms of the zodiac, the 12 signs, the houses, and the nakshatras, the 27 nakshatras. And each has its own unique flavor and a story that they say, which deepens the experience of you as a native and you as an astrologer. And that's the first time when these festivals started to make sense a little bit more. And over the years, thanks to Sam's encouragement, I started doing posts for full moon and new moon and on all these festivals. And for me, that was the time when I would really think and contemplate what we celebrated in India and the little rituals we did and why we did them. And how did that form a basis of my own spiritual journey, so to say, because there were these practices on the exterior, and now I was taking those practices and going deep within and letting them really grow. So the seed was already there, and the practice of astrology was like watering that seed and providing proper soil and nourishment for that tree to start to grow within me and things to deepen within me and take a root, right?
Hmm.
And then these festivals stopped being these meaningless celebrations. And to be frank, a lot of Indians don't know the deeper meaning behind each festival and how it connects to astrology and how it connects to spirituality, because astrology is like a really strong framework for spiritual growth. Most
Yeah,
Indians
and
don't even think about it.
yeah, just if I can interject real quick, it's the
Yeah.
same that we do here in the West. I mean, we have Christmas, but most people don't celebrate it as anything related to like Jesus or anything sort of Christian. Easter, people don't set. It's with people all around the world. We're very disconnected from whatever sacred origin they came from, and they've become very secular. I just wanted to also pick up on, but in India, there's so many of them. And again, notice here in the West, like in the US, because we're basically monotheistic in the sense that there's Jesus and God, and that's kind of our culture, our religious, holidays.
Mhm.
India, they have so many gods. It's like Shiva, Vishnu, Divine Mother, Ganesh. It's like, this is why there's so many holidays, so many holy days, because this is so many gods. It's like, but this is the thing to understand. One of the reasons, and this is the part that's analogous to what I'm going to be teaching and why it's important to know this, is India still also has a connection to this sacred energy, the sacred sky. And what we're going to be talking about in this weekend course is actually all of that energy. Why we're celebrating the Divine Mother celebration, for example, now in early mid-October. This is when we generally do it because there's a specific astrological situation happening then. And then the next month is Diwali, and it's coordinated with lunar days and all. None of it is random. And so what Malini's saying is, once we start to study astrology, and she heard me discuss these things, and she started looking at it as well, it was like, oh, that's why we're doing it. That's why Mahashivaratri happens on K14 in January or February, and why this full moon is Guru Purnima, not another full moon, etc. So, but Indians, not only do they not understand the astrology, that's a very nuanced part, but they're also very disconnected from the spiritual tradition as well, just
Mhm.
like we are. So, like you said at the beginning, this is a very unique, like very kind of meta unique class to actually connect the holidays with astrology. I mean, even just to connect the holidays with the actual stories and what they mean would be enough. Not to mention then take those stories and connect that with the cosmology framework.
Yeah, definitely. And the uniqueness of Indian stories that we don't ponder upon is these stories are actually telling is a story of the astrology of the
Yeah,
sky.
the cosmology,
So
as we would call it. Yeah.
yeah, it's not a random story, and things don't happen randomly. They happen in a specific sequence, and each mythological character plays a specific role, which ties back to the sky at that moment. And
That
that sky
astrological framework.
repeats. Yeah, that framework repeats every so often. It's cyclical. So you're invoking that energy. And through these stories, when you listen to them, when you repeat them, when you enact them, like people enact the burning of Ravana's effigy, that enactment is actually invoking the cosmology in your life, which was the way of life in ancient India. Everything was about invocation. Nothing was about um, wants or desires or just meaningless, not thinking about things. Everything was about invoking the sky into a physical, tangible form, which is our
Yeah, and
body, right? Which is
and
very
even
coarse.
hmm and even the simplest things, like for example, what lunar phase it falls
Mm-hmm.
on. You have ones that start on the new moons. They're often like 10 days, 9-day festivals. Sometimes they're just one day off, but even if it's not a long cycle, they're all timed to different lunar days, which are phase angles between the sun and the moon. You have
Mm-hmm.
Ganesh Chaturthi. Chaturthi means the fourth lunar day. You have Guru Purnima. Purnima is the full moon. You have Shivaratri, which happens on one of the lunar days called Chaturdashi. You have, all of, Akshaya Tritiya, which is the third lunar day. So all of these things are strategically timed, and the stories describe not only a way to deepen your astrological understanding, but also your understanding of the holiday itself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so how, like, do you have an example of, like, let's say something that you used to do more mechanically back in the days, we're like, oh, okay, it's Diwali, so we'll light the lamp and we'll eat sweets, and now it's taken on a different flavor, or do you have an example of, or like with Ganesha? By the way, one of the great things about having Malini here, and I thought of her right away when I wanted to teach this, is because, again, growing up in India, she did all this stuff. I mean, here in the West, we talk about it, like, Ganesh Chaturthi, we make clay Ganeshas and put them in water, and there's all this symbology behind it, which is what we're going to talk about. But that's why I wanted her to be involved in the class so much, because she did all this stuff for, like, first 20 years of her life or something. So she could really talk about the transformation that she went through with it personally, and also just what it's like to live those things. Do you have anything to share about that?
I think each festival, I've gone through that journey. Let's talk about the most common one, which is Diwali, right?
Oh, okay.
And so, Mumbai has a lot of people who are from Gujarat, and for them, Diwali is a 5-day festival. And it starts from the K13 or the Trayodashi, Krishna Trayodashi, before the new moon, and it goes all the way
in
up
Ashwin.
In Ashwin, and then it all goes all the way up to Shukla Dvitiya, that those 5 days. Whereas we are South Indians, so we would have that one day of Diwali celebration, which is the new moon, and we would celebrate Lakshmi Pujan, right? We would celebrate Lakshmi. So yeah, getting up in the morning really early, irritatedly, and at 5 a.m. and before the sun rises, you're supposed to have a shower, wear new clothes. Diwali is one day whether you have money or you don't have money. And literally, there were times when my family didn't have the money. You are supposed to wear new clothes, and prepare sweets, clean your house. It has to be spick and span. And as the sun rises, as it's coming up the horizon, you're supposed to light lamps and burst firecrackers, and that would be a tradition. And it's fun to do it. It's fun to light firecrackers and lamps that early, but like waking up and you're like, what? And it's just not
we all like the fun part of it. We don't like the work part of it.
Yeah. And the work part would be like cleaning the house and
getting up early.
And like making sure, like, we all, especially the girls, are supposed to look like Lakshmi, because you're inviting Lakshmi over in your house, and seems very superficial, right? And then when I started studying astrology, I realized that you light lamps that day because of the configuration of the sun and the moon, and the luminaries in the sky are not they're the luminaries, and they're not, we'll talk about that in some other time, but they're not that strong, and we start lighting lamps so that we help the sun itself, we help the power within. And Lakshmi is literally, Sita was Lakshmi's incarnation, and she comes back home. So that's why you dress little girls up as and deck them in beautiful clothes as a symbol of Lakshmi coming back home, right? The abundance and wealth coming back home.
And so this is, I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you asking?
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, and so this is one of the examples of, and again, this is what we're going to break down in the course, where because the sun and moon are at a difficult state, we intentionally make them stronger. We intentionally bring the light because the sun is weak. We intentionally, evoke the beautiful feminine with the beautiful clothes and all that because the moon is weak. So we bring that. This is an intention behind that, behind that day. and it's shown astrologically, right? And so the whole transition of understanding, you know, these festivals, you know, rather than just something to do, where we're kind of going through it and eating sweets and bursting firecrackers and putting lamps out and getting up early, we know now once we connect it with the astrology that it's actually an inner fire ritual as well. It's a purification ritual that even goes back to yoga and Sankhya philosophy and being intentional about bringing the light. So that's one example. You know, we're going to go over many in the weekend course, but I just wanted to have a quick conversation with Malini here about these things, because she's going to offer so much. You know, we're going to go through like, you know, 10 to 15 holidays like this, and she's going to tell, and, you know, we're both going to talk about the stories, but also the living experience and the things that we do and what they really mean, the astrological significance of them. And I'm going to have like a map of the sky that shows exactly what the sun and moon are doing relative to the seasons and whatnot at that time, so you can also see it for yourself and know what these things mean. So, Malini, I want to thank you for sharing this little tidbit here. This is to sort of entice people to say, oh, this will be great to hear about this stuff. So you go ahead and register. You also get some great bonus courses. When you do, you get a class that I taught on classical Tantra, Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, where I also take you through tantric practices straight from the source, and also a class on spiritual astrology case studies. So you also get that when you register between now and the beginning of the course. But thanks again, Malini. Any last things you wanted to say?
No, thank you. This is great. And please sign up as soon as possible.
Yeah, it'll be a wonderful weekend. We have a great time, me teaching, and then bouncing it off Malini and her explaining her viewpoint, especially in this case as someone who's from India. It'll be a very rare experience. So